Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and we're going to get started this morning. It's 9:05, or about 5 minutes late, and I'm going to go ahead and begin. And this is being recorded, and I'll put it on the curriculum website so that anyone who wanted to attend and is not able to can still watch it at their convenience. The intent of our conversation, our gathering this morning, is literally just to tie it all together. And so really this conversation will pull together the professional development videos that you've watched. You've watched three videos, one on essential standards, which covered essential standards and priority standards and proficiency scales, and ties them all into one really nice package for you on how they all fit together. And then you watched a third video, or a second video, on accelerated learning, on how to take those essential and priority standards and maximize your instruction time and maximize learning time for students and their learning abilities. And then the third video you watched was on defined learning, which is project-based activities that tie into the Missouri Learning Standards. And so they could help make the projects that we assign students to complete at home in a distance, in a virtual environment, even in a in-person brick and mortar environment, more engaging and authentic and real world. And so today we're going to take a walk through all of the documents and the housing of those documents, so that everything starts to just pull together. That's the only intent of this meeting, is to just tie it all together. And so I'm going to start the meeting by, I'm going to make Daniel the co-host of our meeting, and Daniel will be watching the chat feature. He will also be able to manage some of the mics and things like that if needed. And so if you do have questions as we go through the presentation, please add them to the chat feature, and Daniel will monitor them and let me know anything that I need to know that might be urgent in the moment. Otherwise, we will go through the questions at the end, and Daniel will help feed me the questions at the end for us to answer, because it's very likely that as we're going through this presentation, some of the questions that you have will coalesce and be answered for you. And so now I'm going to go ahead and share my screen with you. There are no attachments or anything that you need. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Shearer, is what you see now is the cross-district norms? Mm-hmm. Great, thank you. So at your department meetings back in on Wednesday, a lot of you were led by your department chairs or someone acting as a department chair. And in that meeting, you were able to discuss the cross-district virtual norms. These are a rough draft. Hopefully your department chair explained that to you. And the department chairs were gathering feedback on these virtual norms, so that the instructional coaches and the rest of the CNI team can take the thoughts and put them together, so that we are able to think through what we want as cross-district virtual norms. The one thing that I want to reiterate, that I am certain was already discussed, is that these district virtual norms are adult norms for our virtual meetings, but they serve as a starting point as you consider what it means to create norms for your students. Remember the importance of having classroom rules, expectations, and procedures that you would have had, what we would call norms of your classroom, and that you would be creating then virtual routines, expectations, procedures, what you will have as your virtual norms with your students. Your building level administrator is likely going to work with you on how to establish the virtual norms for you with your students. There may be some building wide norms that you'll have established with your students. But then, of course, just like in your classroom, you have building norms for behaviors, but you might also have some individualized norms for you and your students. But let's go back then to our district-wide adult norms. The district-wide adult norms, the one that stood out the most was item number 5. What does it mean to be an active listening screen presence? And the elementary department chairs, when we discussed these as at department chair convening meetings last week, item 5 was an especially robust conversation. And wanting to delineate the difference between a webinar or a sit and get type of meeting versus a meeting that is meant to be collaborative and conversational in nature. And so this meeting today, and what they came to was in that moment, without having discussed it with their colleagues, what they came to in that moment was the need that if it is meant to be a department meeting or something that is meant to be participatory and collaborative in nature, when you would sit at a table, you wouldn't have put your head behind a binder. And so in meetings that are meant to be close and tight and collaborative of nature, that screens would be on and that visual contact being made with each other would be the norm. And that if it was more of a webinar or a large group where maybe there's lots of attendees and the participation is not expected, it's more just like an auditorium type situation, even if it's virtual, then it could be okay to have your static image or your name as the placeholder instead of your face. And so that, I am sure, was discussed with your department chairs during your department convening meetings. And we'll review all of the notes. Today, this being less of a expected conversation among all of us, I am okay if you want to close your video. That won't hurt my feelings at all. But if you do at the end choose to want to communicate with me, I personally would love it if you turn your video back on, because I do like making eye contact and speaking with you. That's just a personal preference of mine if you are speaking with me. And so these virtual norms are ones that are still in draft form.
I'm in a department.
But do let us know that feedback, and we'll be reviewing it soon. All right, so the main thing that we're going to talk about today is the curriculum website. And so when you go to, and your curriculum documents, when you go to the curriculum website, it is not posted on the internet. And so I have gotten a couple of emails from people saying, where do I find the curriculum website? And if you are not well-versed in the address, it is grandviewc4curriculum.net. The district's website is grandviewc4.net. Our curriculum website is grandviewc4curriculum.net. And so you will need, we have said this before, but it always bears repeating, especially with new hires or people changing roles in the district. You will need to bookmark this. You will need to make a shortcut to your desktop, whatever you need to do so that you can find it, because you cannot Google it. If you have typed the address into your address bar previously, it will pop up in your drop down as you start to type in the address. But we have blocked our curriculum website from Google search so that it protects our work and any student identifying any information from being searchable on the internet. So make sure that you are able to locate grandviewc4curriculum.net. When you land on that page, your curriculum, you are all secondary math in this meeting. So you would go to either middle school curriculum or you would go to high school curriculum. I'm going to choose middle school curriculum. When you go to middle school, you'll see there's your content is here under math, and then it pulls it up for 6th grade math, 7th grade math, and 8th grade math. It also shows whether you're middle school or high school, how to get to your department folder for Melissa Wyatt or for Jeremy Clarkson. Melissa and Jeremy will be dropping in all of your slides and agendas for your recurring department meetings that occur every 2 weeks. And they'll usually within probably a day in advance of your department meeting, they'll drop in if they have slides for your group's meeting, they'll drop them in about a day in advance. And any agenda meeting notes that they want for you to review, they'll have them in usually about a day in advance for you to review prior. Otherwise, all of the recordings of your department meetings, Melissa and Jeremy will drop into that department folder. And so that if you were unable to attend your department meeting for some reason, maybe you were ill or you had another commitment with maybe your building principal, then you could watch the department meeting for your planning purposes. Okay, so if we go into, let's say 7th grade math, and Melissa, I requested to be able to view your pacing guide, your pacing calendar. I did not have rights to that, but I was able to open your math curriculum. So the course map for all of 6th, 7th, and 8th, 9th, for Algebra 1, Algebra 2, and Geometry all look alike. I will also show a high school example, but for here's an example of 7th grade math. All of your curriculum documents, the beginning page is what's called your course map. The course map is the overview of the entire course for the year. It outlays for you and for all maybe first year teachers or people new to our district, it outlays the overview of the entire course, gives the description, and also has a short abbreviated time frame for all of the units of that course. The big ideas and essential questions can be found on the course map for each of the units. You will notice at the bottom of the course map are all of the essential standards from the course prior, all the prerequisite essential standards. So those have been dropped in to your course map so that you can also find which unit of instruction those essential standards best fit. And where then the sample lessons could be found for how to teach it. If you so if I see unit 1 in, let's say, 7th grade math, I know that in unit 1, I have several essential standards from 6th grade math that I'm going to need to address in unit 1, and I can find which lessons I will need them for, so that when I go to unit 1 and I'm teaching from my unit 1, I'm very familiar with what 6th grade standards I'll need to embed as scaffolding lessons. Then I look in my unit 1, each unit is then laid out. So inside my unit, it gives me an example of approximately how many days, the essential questions and big ideas of the unit, and then the unwrapping of the unit. The main thing that I want you to notice, especially based on the conversations that you watched in your PD video, is the location of proficiency scales. In your unit map, you'll see a line that says the unit assessment plan. And in that assessment plan are the proficiency scales for the unit. And so you can click on that and that will take you to the proficiency scales for your grade level or course. All of the proficiency scales have been itemed by priority standard, and they are the tabs at the bottom of the screen. And so you can see that when you go to a priority standard, there are the descriptors by proficiency level. One thing that you might be have heard from your department chair and be wondering about is we discussed that there will be a tuning of the proficiency scales. That will not happen until September, probably mid to late September. You have enough to think about right now, and as do the department chairs and curriculum authors that supported the writing of those proficiency scales. But once we get up and going, probably about mid to late September, there is a tuning protocol that the curriculum team, your department chair and curriculum authors, that curriculum team will guide your department through a tuning protocol so that everyone is in agreement with what it means to be approaching, meeting, and exceeding that standard, that priority standard. Because as you know, the priority standards are what we record and report progress on for students. And so we want to make sure that we're able to communicate well about those priority standards. So there will be a tuning protocol coming for you soon. Also, underneath the proficiency scales on the curriculum map are the assessment correlations. And so you're probably familiar with the math assessments. They are aligned to the math resource. They are not, the assessments are not aligned to the Missouri Learning Standards, and they are not aligned to our priority or essential standards. So what the curriculum teams did this summer was reviewed every single assessment that is given in your grade or course, and they have determined which of those items meet the Missouri Learning Standards for your priority standards. They also tell you if that item on the assessment is an approaching, a meeting, or an exceeding standard. And so as you give the assessments to your students, you would want to be very cautious as a department, and I know that Melissa and Jeremy will help you with this process, but you will want to be very cautious that you are not penalizing students for not meeting the exceeding items on an assessment. Exceeding is a way to demonstrate that they are going above and beyond the standard, so we would not penalize a student for not being able to exceed a standard. However, if an item is an approaching item and a student is only successful or only majority of them are approaching, then the student is not meeting the standard. They're still in the approaching. I have no doubt that Melissa and Jeremy talked with you about this. Your building level principals are also extremely well versed in this work, as are your instructional coaches. So please, if you have any questions about the item correlations for the assessments for your course or content, please do reach out to your department chair, your instructional coach, and your building principal. If your answers are still not addressed, feel free to reach out to Mr. Shearer or myself, and we will help you further. Going back to, so going back to the curriculum website, the high school curriculum looks the same. You would go to math, and I've pulled up Algebra 1. So if we look at, for example, the Algebra 1 page, you see a pacing calendar and the units of study, just like you would have seen at the middle school level. The pacing calendars look like this and are so that you can pace out how long the units will take. There was an approval to an adjustment in the district calendar, and that adjustment has been shared with your curriculum teams. If they have not already, they will be soon going in and adjusting the pacing calendars to meet the new end of quarter and end of year dates, and they will also adjust as needed for conferences. And so these documents are, they are living documents, as you know would be necessary, and so that's why they're there. And so if they haven't already updated, they will be soon. I think most of the chairs and curriculum teams have already updated the calendar. The other document on that Algebra 1 page then, of course, is the unit guide. And again, you see the proficiency scales with the assessments and the item analysis for the unit. And so that's how those documents are able to be read and where items are found on those documents. The main thing to keep in mind with the use of these curriculum documents is that as a department, while you are not required to teach the exact same thing on the exact same day in the exact same way, you do need to stay connected. And that is why you are having recurring meetings every other Wednesday. The main focus of those meetings is to ensure that you are staying in constant communication with your students, with your parents, and with each other and your administrators, and asking for feedback, asking students, how are you doing in Canvas? How are you doing in illustrative math? How are you doing with the assignments, with the items that I'm dropping into Canvas? Ask them not just about the tools themselves, but also about your pedagogy. When I taught it this way, did that work for you in this virtual environment? That way, when you get together as a department, you have lots of feedback to provide each other so that you can be making adjustments to the pedagogy and the resources as needed. Your building administrator will also, and instructional coaches will be a valuable resource to you as departments on any decisions that you all need to make as this year progresses. When you think about Canvas also, each one of those unit maps, for example, in Algebra 1, Unit 1 tab says one variable stats is the name of that unit. And so in your Canvas account, if I'm an Algebra 1 teacher, when I build a module for my students, that module would be my Unit 1. If I'm in 7th grade and I'm thinking about my first unit then in 7th grade would be scale drawing. And so that's the module that I would have in Canvas is scale drawing, okay? And so then within my Canvas, the module is my unit. Within that unit, within that module, I'm building pages or assignments or discussion boards or quizzes or external tools that are then the lessons that I'm providing for the students. So underneath my module for Unit 1 on scale drawings, I might now then include a page that includes the lessons for the week, links to instruction, content for students, videos that students might need. I might add another option from Canvas for assignments, and I might attach assignments to the assignments page. I can also include links to outside assessments and assignments. I could add Google Docs that students are going to complete, things like that. And so then I might also add a discussion to that module. It could be a discussion board housed directly within Canvas. It could be a live link straight to a Zoom conversation that then is recorded for students with a follow-up activity that students are then having to either participate in if they were able or watch asynchronistically, but then a follow-up discussion board to that Zoom meeting where you've posed questions for them to converse with each other and with you. You might add quizzes. Quizzes can be created for your unit right inside of Canvas. They can also be external links to third-party options, and then all of the external tools that we have embedded within Canvas that you can drop in for each module. And so hopefully you now kind of feel like everything fits together and you kind of see how all of the items flow together. And that really should feel supportive to you as you're learning Canvas, as you're learning about the curriculum documents, as you're learning about acceleration techniques with students and some of the resources that you have and how they all fit together. You have lots of time built into the calendar for these 2 weeks, this week and all of next week, lots of time to work and work together, not only by yourself in your classroom, but also with your instructional coaches, with your departments, with your teams, with your building level principal. And you can rewatch any of the Canvas or the professional development videos as often as you need, and reach out to as many people as you need. Peter and Mary are also extremely well versed in a lot of these tools. So that concludes the kind of pulling it together information. I'm going to check the chat. Mr. Scheer, is there anything? Okay. And so I'll talk to Mr. Sizemore about being able to Google it. It didn't used to do that. So we may need to re-up the hiding on Google search. There's nothing secret on our curriculum website. Anything that has student names or district information is actually, because of how Google is set up, it's set our Google Docs, you have to have a Google email in order to access them. So it's not a ride or die situation, but just for our own protection, I like it to be hidden from search. So I'll talk to Mr. Sizemore about that. Anything else? Ms. Dacus?
For people that were not at curriculum camp, Daniel is our new director of PD. So please, everybody say hi to him and welcome him to the team. And people that are new to the district, Ms. McCracken is our director of curriculum and instruction. So you'll see both of those. When you see those names, you can put a face with them. That's all.
Thank you, Ms. Dacus. Okay. Well, I don't see any questions, so it must mean that you're feeling very good, or else please do reach out to your instructional coach for your building. That would be Quincy Dacus, Jill Carter, and Bridget Williams. Also, know that Ms. Dacus is your identified math support for 6th through 12th grade. And so even though you might not have an instructional coach assigned to your building at this time at the high school, Ms. Dacus is available to you if you have math questions. And all of the instructional coaches are district coaches. They have an office in a building, but they actually work for the district. And so don't hesitate to reach out as needed so that you can feel supported. Your building principals are also experts. They really are instructional leaders and should be able to support you as well. So with that, not seeing any other questions, I bid you a wonderful day, and we'll be in touch soon. Thank you so much, everyone.